My fiancée got a tattoo with another man's initials, claiming it honored her late grandmother. Her grandmother's name was Eleanor. The tattoo said JD. When I asked who JD was, she went pale. He was very much alive and shocked when I called him from her phone. Throwaway because a few friends know my name. I am Mark, 32, and I work in commercial lending. I live just outside Columbus in a quiet suburb where most days look the same: gym before work, office, dinner, repeat. My fiancée is Paige, 29, and we have been together a little over 3 years. We got engaged 6 months ago, and we live together in a townhouse I bought before we met, but we split bills and manage the place as a team. Wedding planning has been a steady background noise, mostly her Pinterest boards and vendor calls, with me handling the boring logistics. We were not a chaotic couple. We argued like adults, made up fast, and generally stayed out of other people's drama. Or at least I thought we did. Paige is the kind of person who speaks like everything is a negotiation. She is already winning. She is quick with sarcasm, quick to correct people, and she has this habit of turning normal questions into accusations, like you are interrogating her instead of talking. I used to chalk it up to stress or personality. Lately, it has been getting sharper. 2 weeks ago, she told me she wanted a small tattoo to honor her late grandmother. Her grandma helped raise her, and Paige talks about her like she was the only stable adult in her childhood. I did not push back. Tattoos are personal. I just asked what she was thinking, and she said something minimal, maybe initials, maybe a date, nothing dramatic. Yesterday, she came home with a fresh bandage on the inside of her wrist, and that smug little look like she was waiting for me to react correctly. She held it out like a prize. I asked if it was for Eleanor. She said yes, obviously, and rolled her eyes like I was slow. When she peeled the edge of the bandage back, I saw 2 letters in clean black ink. JD. I blinked, thinking maybe it was part of a longer design. Maybe there was more under the wrap. There was not. Just JD, crisp and deliberate, like it had been planned. I said Eleanor does not have a J or a D in it. Paige's face tightened for half a second. Then she laughed in this short, mean way and told me not to start a fight over something that did not concern me. I asked again, calmly, who is JD? She opened her mouth like she had a script ready, then stopped. And she went pale. She recovered fast, but it was the kind of recovery that felt like acting. Paige pulled her wrist back and pressed the bandage down like she could hide the letters by flattening them. Then she hit me with attitude, like my question was the real problem. She said it was for her grandmother. I said I am not trying to police your body. I just do not understand how JD connects to Eleanor. She exhaled hard and told me her grandmother had a nickname for her, and JD was part of that, and she did not feel like unpacking her grief for me. The way she said grief was weaponized, like a shield she could swing around. I told her I was not accusing her of anything. I was asking a basic question because it is literally another man's initials on your wrist. Paige's eyes narrowed and she asked why I assumed it was a man. I said because J and D are common initials and you are not explaining it. She laughed again and said I was being insecure and weird. I tried to keep it neutral. I asked what the nickname was, what JD stood for, anything. She crossed her arms and said I should trust her and stop interrogating her like she is a criminal. That word interrogating came out rehearsed, like she had used it before. She started listing all the ways she had been stressed, wedding stuff, work stuff, how I never let her have anything for herself. Which is ridiculous, because I do not care what she does for herself. I care when something feels dishonest. The part that messed with me is that she is usually too confident to get flustered. Even when she is wrong, she doubles down with energy. This time she looked like someone walked into the room holding a file with her name on it. I asked one more time, Paige, who is JD? Her mouth opened and closed. Then she did that thing where she turns the spotlight back on you. She asked why I was obsessed with initials. She asked if I was cheating and projecting. She asked if I wanted to call off the wedding because I was scared. Every question was delivered like a punch. I told her to stop and just answer me. She stared at the floor for a beat and said it was a private memorial and I was not entitled to details. She said if I kept pushing, she would sleep at her sister's because she was not going to be attacked in her own home. I remember looking at her wrist again and feeling my stomach drop because the letters were not tiny and hidden. They were placed like someone wanted them seen. I told her I was not trying to attack her, but this is my future and I need honesty. She snapped, fine, it is someone she knew years ago, it is complicated, and I would not understand. Then she immediately tried to walk it back, saying it did not matter, it was symbolic, it was nothing. That was when I said, "Okay, if it is nothing, tell me his name." Paige did not just hesitate. She froze. Then she said, "Do not call him." Like that thought had already been sitting in her head, waiting. And that is when I realized she was not scared of my feelings. She was scared of what would happen if I talked to JD. The fact that she jumped straight to do not call him told me more than anything else. I had not even said I was going to. It was just sitting there in her head as the obvious next move. That meant there was a real person attached to those letters. I kept my voice steady and asked why she assumed I would call anyone. She immediately backtracked and said she just meant do not drag random people into our relationship. The word random did not land the way she thought it would. I told her this does not feel random. You do not permanently ink random on your wrist. She rolled her eyes and said I was spiraling. That word again, like I was the unstable one. She said JD was from before me and that I was being territorial about someone who was not relevant. I asked if he was an ex. She said no. I asked if he was someone she had feelings for. She said that was none of my business. That was the first time in 3 years she has ever told me something was none of my business. At that point, I stopped arguing and just watched her. Paige talks fast when she is confident. When she is cornered, she slows down and starts choosing words like she is defusing a bomb. That is what she was doing. I said I am not trying to control you. I am trying to understand why my fiancée has another man's initials tattooed on her and cannot give a straight answer. She snapped back that I was making it about a man because I am insecure. She said JD could stand for anything. I asked her to tell me what it stands for. She did not. Then she changed tactics. She softened her voice and said her grandmother loved someone with those initials, and this was a tribute to that connection. It sounded half-formed, like she was building the story while speaking. I asked what the connection was. She said it was complicated family history, and she did not owe me every detail of her past. I told her this is not about her entire past. It is about a permanent mark that does not align with the explanation she gave me. I reminded her that we are planning a wedding in 5 months. If something from her past is significant enough to put on her body forever, it is significant enough for me to know. She got quiet. Not angry quiet. Calculating quiet. Her phone was on the kitchen counter. Screen lit up with a notification. She moved toward it too fast. That movement was not subtle. It was protective. I said, "Who is JD? Full name." She said, "Do not. Just do not." That was the second time she said it like a warning, not a request. And I realized something simple. If there was nothing to hide, she would have answered in the first 30 seconds. So I picked up her phone. She moved at the same time I did, but I was closer. I picked up her phone and held it just out of reach. I did not unlock it right away. I just looked at her. Paige's entire posture changed. The sarcasm dropped. The superiority dropped. She looked tense, almost brittle. She told me to give it back, and that going through her phone would be a violation of trust. I said trust requires consistency, and right now nothing about this is consistent. I asked for the passcode. She said no. I reminded her we both have each other's codes. We agreed on that 2 years ago after a minor argument about transparency. She hesitated, which told me she had not changed it. I typed it in and the phone opened. She lunged for it. Not violently, but urgently. I stepped back. I was not interested in scrolling through months of messages. I just opened her recent calls. JD was saved as just 2 letters. No last name. No emoji. Just JD. There were multiple outgoing calls in the past week. 2 were late at night, after I had gone to bed. I felt something settle in my chest. Not panic. Not rage. Just clarity. I tapped the contact. She said if you call him, we are done. That line was delivered cold, like she had decided the hill she was willing to die on. I asked her one last time, who is he? She said he is nobody and that I was humiliating her. I asked why nobody needed multiple late-night calls. She did not answer that. Instead, she said it was about closure. She said JD had been important to her years ago and her grandmother knew about him. She said the tattoo symbolized forgiveness and growth. It was an entirely new explanation from the one about a nickname and family history. I told her those are 3 different stories in 10 minutes. She looked cornered again and said I was twisting her words. That I was trying to trap her. I was not trying to trap her. I was trying to confirm reality. So I hit call. The phone rang once. Twice. Paige whispered please like it was a prayer. On the 3rd ring, a man answered. He sounded confused, not prepared. I put it on speaker without warning her. I said, "Hi, this is Mark. I am Paige's fiancé. I just have a quick question." There was silence on the other end. Then he said fiancé, like he had never heard that word connected to her before. The The silence stretched long enough that I could hear faint background noise on his end, like a television or traffic. Then he cleared his throat and asked who I said I was again. I repeated it calmly. Mark. Her fiancé. Paige was shaking her head at me, mouthing hang up like I was detonating something. I ignored her. JD said he did not know she was engaged. He sounded genuinely thrown off, not defensive, not prepared with an excuse. That detail mattered to me more than anything Paige had said. I asked him how he knew her. He hesitated, then said they dated on and off for about 4 years. Ended things last year. That timeline overlapped directly with the beginning of my relationship with her. I felt the pieces align in a way that did not require dramatics. I asked when they last spoke. He said they had been talking recently because she reached out. Said she missed the way things were. Said she was confused about her future. Paige lunged for the phone again, and this time I stepped out of reach and held it steady. I asked him if he knew about the tattoo. He went quiet for a second, then said she told him she was thinking about it. He thought it was a joke. He asked if she actually did it. I said yes. JD is on her wrist. He let out a breath that sounded more shocked than flattered. He said that was not a good idea and that he told her she should not do anything permanent if she was about to get married. That sentence hit harder than anything else. I asked him one more thing. Did she tell you she loved you recently? Another pause. Then yes. Paige covered her face with her hands like she could block the sound. I thanked him for being honest and ended the call. I did not yell. I did not accuse. I just handed the phone back to her. She immediately started talking, fast and sharp. She said he was exaggerating. She said he always dramatizes. She said I blindsided her by calling him, and now he was retaliating. I asked one question. Did you tell him you loved him? She did not answer right away. She said it was complicated. She said love can mean different things. She said she was grieving her grandmother and JD was tied to that chapter of her life. I listened to all of it without interrupting. Then I said something simple. You put another man's initials on your body while planning a wedding with me, and he did not even know you were engaged. For the first time since this started, she did not have a comeback ready. I did not raise my voice. I did not pace. I did not ask for another version of the story. I looked at her and said this is over. She blinked like she did not process it. Then she laughed once, short and dismissive, and said I was being dramatic. She told me to stop posturing and talk like an adult. I told her I am talking like an adult. You told another man you loved him. You hid our engagement from him. You tattooed his initials on your body while we are planning a wedding. There is nothing ambiguous about that. She shifted instantly into defense mode. She said it was emotional confusion. She said she needed closure. She said she never physically cheated, like that was the line that mattered. She said the tattoo was symbolic and I was twisting it into something ugly. I cut in calmly and said I do not care about symbolic. I care about intent. She started crying then, but even that felt strategic. The tears came without the usual collapse. No shaking, no silence, just wet eyes and fast talking. She said I was throwing away 3 years over a misunderstanding. She said every relationship has complications. She said I was not perfect either. I told her this is not a gray area for me. I am not marrying someone who is actively telling another man she loves him. She tried a new angle. She said she could get the tattoo removed. She said she would block him. She said she panicked when I called because she knew I would overreact. I told her I did not overreact. I verified. That seemed to irritate her more than anything. She hates not controlling the narrative. She said calling him was invasive and humiliating. I agreed. It probably was. But humiliation was a consequence of dishonesty, not my curiosity. Then I said something she did not expect. You need to pack a bag and leave tonight. Her face changed again. Not pale this time. Angry. She reminded me that she lives here. I told her the house is in my name, purchased before we met. She contributes to utilities and groceries, not the mortgage. I am not evicting you. I am asking you to stay somewhere else while we separate logistics. She accused me of kicking her out in the middle of the night. I told her it was 7 in the evening and her sister lives 15 minutes away. I also said I am not comfortable sleeping in the same space after what I just learned. She stood there for a long second like she was calculating whether defiance would work. It did not. I took my ring off and placed it on the kitchen counter. Not dramatically, just deliberately. The wedding is canceled. I will call the venue tomorrow. That was when she realized I was not threatening. I was final. The shift in her tone was immediate. The arrogance drained out and was replaced with something colder. She said I was making a mistake I would regret. She said no one else would tolerate my rigidity. She said real relationships require flexibility. It was an attempt to reframe betrayal as depth. I did not argue with her. I repeated what I had already decided. You told another man you loved him. You hid our engagement. You put his initials on your body. I am not negotiating that. She moved into logistics mode then, which is her comfort zone. She asked what about the deposits? What about the invitations that had already been designed? What about the families? It sounded less like grief and more like inconvenience. I told her I would handle the venue call in the morning. Most of the major payments were refundable within this window. I had read the contracts when we signed them. I do not sign things blindly. That seemed to irritate her again. She said I was acting like I had been preparing for this. I told her I prepare for contingencies in my job. I apply the same logic to my life. She went upstairs without another word. I heard drawers opening, closet doors sliding. No dramatic slamming. Just fast movements. While she packed, I sat at the kitchen table and texted my brother that the wedding was off. I kept it factual. I did not editorialize. He called immediately. I told him the basics and said I would explain later. I did not need commentary. I needed witnesses to reality. When she came back down, she had one suitcase and a tote bag. She had taken her laptop, some clothes, toiletries. She left most of her furniture and decor. I told her we could coordinate a time for her to collect the rest when I was not home. I would not play property tug of war. At the door she paused and said I was choosing pride over love. I answered honestly, no, I am choosing self-respect over confusion. She stared at me like she wanted me to soften. I did not. Then she said JD did not mean what I thought he meant. I asked her what he meant then. She had nothing new to offer. She left without slamming the door. The house felt quiet in a way that was uncomfortable but clean. I locked the door, sat back down at the table, and looked at the ring on the counter. 3 years ended in under an hour. Not because of the tattoo alone, because of what it revealed. I did not sleep much that night, but not because I was reconsidering anything. It was mental housekeeping. Once I make a decision, I move into execution. The next morning, I emailed the venue and the caterer. Short and direct. Wedding canceled due to personal reasons. Please confirm refund, terms under contract section 4. By noon I had confirmation that most of the deposit would be returned minus an administrative fee. That alone reinforced that acting immediately was the right call. Paige texted mid-morning. You really canceled everything. No apology. No ownership. Just disbelief. I responded once. Yes. This is final. She called right after that. I let it ring out. A minute later another call. Then a longer text about how I was humiliating her, how I blindsided her by calling JD, how people make mistakes when they are grieving. Still nothing addressing the overlap in timelines or the fact that he did not know she was engaged. That was when I realized something simple. Every conversation with her would now be an attempt to renegotiate reality. I do not debate reality. So I sent one final message. Do not contact me again. If you need to coordinate picking up your belongings, email me. I will respond once with a time window. She replied immediately, saying I was being extreme. Saying couples work through things like this. Saying blocking her would prove I never loved her. I did not argue. I blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every platform we used. Instagram, Facebook, even Venmo. Not out of spite. Out of containment. I did not want midnight paragraphs or emotional manipulation slipping through a notification. After that, the silence was clean. I changed the garage code and disabled her fingerprint access to the front door lock. The house is legally mine, purchased before we met, and I was not interested in blurred access. I emailed her once with a 2-hour pickup window for the following afternoon and told her my brother would be present while she collected her things. I kept it procedural. There is a difference between anger and clarity. I was not pacing or yelling. I was updating passwords and forwarding mail. 3 years ended in under 24 hours because the facts were straightforward. She kept an emotional relationship active while committing to marry me. The tattoo was not the betrayal. It was the evidence. And once I saw the evidence, I closed the case. The pickup window came and went without incident. I left the house 30 minutes before the scheduled time, and my brother arrived 10 minutes early. I walked him through what needed to be handed over and what was clearly mine. Furniture I bought before we met. Appliances. Documents. I was not interested in petty disputes. I was interested in a clean separation. She did not try to contact me directly since I blocked her, but she did email once asking if we could talk in person. I declined. I kept my reply structured and brief. Logistics only. No emotional processing required. My brother told me later that she cried while packing. Not loudly. Not theatrically. just steady tears while folding clothes into boxes. He said she tried to explain her side to him, said I was rigid, said I refused to understand nuance. He listened but did not engage. That was exactly why I asked him to be there. By the end of the 2 hours, her things were gone. Closet half empty. Bathroom drawers cleared. The house looked less decorated, more neutral. It felt like it belonged to me again. That evening I sat on the couch and thought about the sequence objectively. She reconnected with an ex. She hid our engagement from him. She told him she loved him. She tattooed his initials on her body. She lied multiple times when asked directly. There is no scenario where that aligns with someone preparing for marriage in good faith. I did not feel rage. I felt something closer to relief. The kind that comes when ambiguity is removed. If I had married her and found this out later, disentangling would have been legally and financially complicated. Instead, I saw the fracture before contracts were signed and guests were seated. A mutual friend texted me that night asking if the rumors were true. I responded simply that the wedding was canceled and I would not be discussing details. I am not interested in character assassination. The facts speak for themselves. What stands out most is not that she had unresolved feelings. People are messy. It is that she built a parallel emotional track while actively planning a future with me. The tattoo made it visible. And visibility forces decisions. It has been 3 weeks. The refunds processed. The save the dates never went out. Most people accepted the cancellation without prying. A few tried to get details. I kept my answer consistent. It was not the right situation for marriage. That is accurate and sufficient. Paige sent one final email 2 days after moving out. It was longer than anything she had written before. She said she sabotages good things when she feels overwhelmed. She said JD represented comfort, not commitment. She said she panicked when the wedding became real and reached backward instead of forward. It was the closest she came to accountability. I read it once and did not respond. Closure does not require debate. It requires acceptance of evidence. Looking back, the tattoo was not the first sign. There had been smaller things. Guarded phone angles. Defensive jokes about exes. Comments about feeling trapped whenever wedding logistics intensified. I registered them at the time, but did not escalate because they were individually minor. What changed everything was not suspicion. It was verification. When I called JD, I was not trying to create drama. I was testing whether reality matched the story I was being told. It did not. That moment gave me something valuable. Certainty. A lot of people stay in situations like this because they want to preserve the investment. 3 years feels heavy. Deposits feel heavy. Family expectations feel heavy. But none of that outweighs clarity. If someone is capable of building a parallel emotional attachment while promising exclusivity, the marriage would not fix that. It would just formalize it. I do not hate her. I do not think she is evil. I think she wanted stability and nostalgia at the same time and assumed she could manage both without consequence. She could not. The ring is back in its box. The house is quiet. My routine is intact. I would rather restart at 32 with a clean break than spend 30 years questioning whether I am the only person in my own marriage. That is the full story.